Meanwhile, the mid lane got put back in as well.
Now here comes Deathwalker, ultimate over the top from Vulcan's going to hit Kalas, and he's going to fall to Zeros, while Zeros also picks up Wolfie under the tier 2 tower.
Dead, the heart bomb came through. Reppy with the credit for the kill. Prime No gets a big time double with that ultimate.
Is he going to be able to get out is a big question that Emilito's going to answer with a resounding no.
There's the damage from Bancroft's really paying off.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Wolfie. That's what happens when you're up against a Freya with 5 items.
Kala's going to come in and going to get a large group. Did not expect that, but energy turn and burn. Emilito takes out the Aryans as quickly as he pulled everybody else in and voted Miguel. Not this time, my friend.
Not want to let this go. Going in, great snipe coming out of Wolfie, and that's going to kill Emilito.
Beautiful setup coming out from the Giannis one more time, and the stun is done. Wolfie able to take down Adapting right there, and there's trouble on the backside. Pretty Prime is so low, but Ataraxia is at 0. Adapting catching up. Can't find the hammer hit, but finds the Zerkers. Now looking towards Variety. Good stun coming out of the Ghost Catcher.
Walls off Wolfie, but he's going to have the portal available soon.
Can't get
Blink
to it just
free.
yet.
He's
Can he
going to
body
block
block
the
the ball?
ball.
He's going to body block it too. Wolfie's in a lot of trouble. The ult goes through. It's not a lot of damage, so it's a wall again. Glacial strike, but a portal comes up big. Guess who's waiting? Captain Twig.
Beautiful belly flop. 3 for Pretty Prime. That's why he's Mr. Vulcan.
The Eagles rally another CC going space and time from Wolfie.
Shaggy Shake, 3-man pin, 3-man taunt, perfect CC chain. There's the damage from Caro. Shaggy Shake picks up the double kill.
Meanwhile, on the front side of things, Fear No Evil on Wolfie. He's level 17, forced to Sanctuary. Deathwalker's already dead 2. 5 members of base still diving in. 2 over the wall with the Lawbringer as well. Variety with a double kill.
Great blink
What
double.
is this? Variety's going in and he's got support from his boys. Lawbringer for one target, the rest of the team chase the other. Reducing the engagement once again from Bologna.
Perfect.
With the Eagles rally. DB gets credit for the kill.
Look at that.
Adapted's going to body block to make sure he can't escape. Double kill the way of Dimmy.
Well, that's a lovely look back at Group C, and we're here this weekend to talk all about Group D. The Group of Death is here. Tolly and Dennis will be bringing me some analysis of what's going to be going on in this first set of the day. But all these teams are playing for their shot to go to the World Championships. You guys at home can go too. You can head over to hi-rezexpo.com and obviously use the promo code Group-D, I believe, and you will get a discount, 25% off, which is pretty good.
Just throwing out there, Blame Adonis code works as well. Thanks, guys.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Blame it on this.
I need to get my numbers up. They're yelling at me. They're like, you've not sold enough tickets.
Use Group-D. It's more important.
No,
in my
to
eyes.
Blame Adonis. Thanks, guys.
No, it's fine. Well, that's the basically the intro to that, but we do have Group D all this weekend. Group of Death. We've been discussing this long and hard because of the fact that all 4 of these teams are big powerhouses, totally.
They're so close together. We actually saw Stu made a tweet asking the players who is going to be winning out of this set, and I replied back like, I think this should be 25% across the board, but SoaR did have an edge.
Yeah, I'm definitely giving SoaR the edge, and Enemy is really the wild card here. If Enemy plays like they did in the spring split, they're a clear top 2 for me. I definitely think they're going to qualify, but we saw what they did in the online phases. Definitely wasn't all there. Obviously, Pandacap's absence can be, that was a pretty big part of it, but that wasn't the only issue that Enemy was having.
Well, let's go straight into this set and discuss it a little bit more. We're going to start things off in a very, very good way. Obviously, we're going to have Cyclone versus Baskin in the solo lane, and what a great way to start things off, Tolly.
It was not the same meta that CycloneSpin is used to before, ever since the switch going from Assassins and Hunters into the Guardian role. He had to adapt his different style, especially losing his jungle presence, Weekend, who was used to camping that solo lane, but now with Skeeledon, definitely a different style.
This was the best player in the world this time last year on Envy, the same team, obviously a different roster and a different meta, but CycloneSpin was so dominant. But actually talking to him in the interviews yesterday, he felt like he was actually overhyped, and he has a lot of respect for Baskin. He actually admitted, he was saying Baskin is better than me. He thinks laning phase Baskin's definitely got him there, and then when it comes to team fights, it's about the same, but Baskin still edges him out.
But Tolly, he had a lot of transitional changes as well here, that man, Cyclone. He had to go through the assassin meta where he was the carry of that team, and now he's defaulted to the Guardians of Warriors like everybody else.
He's had to make that switch because he's just been getting outboxed, unfortunately, by this man right here, Baskin. He even, in his interview, CycloneSpin said that if there's ever one person that he doesn't want to face, it's Baskin, because he always has the edge in the laning phase.
Well, a lot of people have had a lot of things to say about Baskin. Is he the best player in the world? Let's see what some of the players had to say.
Baskin has been said to be like the best player in North America through mechanical skill.
But he went from like a no-name player to like a really good top-tier best NA solo player.
He's really dominant in laning phase, and he knows when he can all-in somebody in a team fight. He just makes a decisive call and goes with it, which is what one of his biggest strengths is.
He's definitely one of the most intelligent players. I think he doesn't get enough credit for that. He really does spend a lot of time thinking about the game and testing builds and all that stuff. And
he always tries to look for like the best way to do something rather than just like playing the game over and over and over. He's constantly trying to say, okay, so I did this and I did it well, how can I do it even better? And I think that's molded him into one of the best players in the world.
Young Woon is just, he's gifted. He's just a magical person.
Baskin's got to be the best mechanical player, or best mechanical solo laner in North America, but he's also the biggest troll in North America, which kind of balances out.
Let's be real, he memes all the time, nonstop, even when off stream, even when off cameras, always memeing.
Everything he does, just everything he does. You know, I show my puppies, like, I'm gonna eat them. I'm like, please don't do that.
His only weakness is that he thinks Witcher 3 is a great game.
Well, we'll see if SoaR end up picking any sort of Fenrir for him to look at eating up today
Not
as well.
the puppies, Woony.
Man. It's a little
Please.
bit early.
No.
A little bit crazy for that one.
No, but I think a lot of that is kind of that lighthearted atmosphere that Baskin brings. You know, he loves playing, and he plays at an incredibly high level.
And a lot of these players are familiar with each other. They've been playing against each other for so long. The only two rookies so far in this whole group is going to be Oceans and Skeeledon on Envy.
And they're both in this game. Yeah, that's a big key here. Envy will have the first pick, first ban opportunity. You can see the bans coming through. Sobek and Sol, and Terra and Athena. Fafnir left up, but we are in North America. Ratatoskr more predominantly picked.
I'm surprised Sol was banned considering how dominant Oceans is on Sol,
Yeah,
always making those rotations. And I think that Oceans is going to be one of the players that you really have to look out for out of Envy.
I think this is scrims. We haven't really seen, I mean, SoaR, you know, in the Hunter role in the mid, they play a lot of different gods, but this to me sends a lesson that, or a message that, you know, we know exactly what you've come prepared with in this land. Sol was not a god that SoaR really relied on. Sure, it was played, and maybe it's a god that Snoopy had actually been practicing and getting more comfortable with. It is that kind of mage hunter that he can be very good on.
And you mentioned as well, Tony, that we do have a couple of rookies here. Obviously, Skeeledon, one of them. They've priority picked the Ratatoskr early on. Is this getting comfortable in the scenario of being at LAN for the first time?
I would say so, especially considering the fact that Kiki has a different style than most other mids. You want to try to get the best possible scenario for both your mid jungle.
Well, you talk about scenarios and getting the best possible. Erlang, Shen, and Raw back at it again.
This is eager strategy. SoaR came prepared with it. You can see PolarBearMike's mouth is running, trying to figure out how to beat it right now. That Erlang Shen, more than likely going to be the jungle, but this is definitely, SoaR's definitely a team that I could see this in 3 different roles. I could see it in the support, I could see it in the jungle, I could see it in the solo. It doesn't really matter where it goes. The idea is that whoever plays that Erlang Shen, their job is going to be to rotate to mid as much as possible and set up these pins for the raw snipes.
Well, Envy needs to go for an anti-healing strategy immediately against this Raw and Erlang Shen, because Erlang Shen has a really good kit for self-sustain. So going for a different route, going for these late game magical damage deals between Freya and Ymir, I would have liked to see maybe an Odin pick instead there.
Why the Ymir so early here, Dennis? I'm very confused by that.
This is just a god that I think PolarBearMike's very comfortable on if it is in the support lane. Also works really well against Raw. Obviously, he has no way to get over those walls, and I think this is going to be a Ymir rotating a lot with this Ratatoskr. They're just going to try and jump on Raw in the back line, because that is one way to counter this, is do not let the Erlang Shen engage on you. If you can get to the back line, if you can wall off that Raw and let your Ratatoskr dive into him and kill him before they can set up the combo, it makes it really hard. It doesn't matter if the Erlang Shen hits the pin if your Raw is just taking so much damage.
And on top of that, the Ymir is a really good flex pick, because we don't really know if that's going to be CycloneSpin or PBM here. We've seen some Guardians coming out of CycloneSpin recently, playing some Xingqian every now and then, but I would really like to see how he plays the Ymir, because early laning phase, Ymir is pretty dominant.
He can be very strong for the push power early on. You did see Envy hover over the Aphrodite a little bit earlier on, but I feel from my point of view there, Adonis, that was to try and force SoaR into just banning it for him.
I mean, maybe, to be fair, I don't really think SoaR mind banning away the Aphrodite as well. Again, Kiki, really the only mid player right now who runs Aphrodite. Sure, it's been played by Yaman in the past, but not frequently and in high-profile games. And it's just a god that Kiki is not only very comfortable on, but really fits his playstyle.
Other than Aphrodite, Kiki also prefers the Nuwa, which is banned away on top of the Chang'e. So Chang'e would be a good anti-healing option, as well as maybe finding that right ultimate where the team from SoaR is grouped up during the heal of Ra.
And this Kuang is probably going to be the big thing for me. Andinster, you know, Lannister's kind of dead. We kind of killed that after he won Worlds the first season, but talking to the players, he still has anxiety issues, and this is a god that you really can't mess up on.
I mean, to be fair, at this point, for every player, you have to be nervous and a little bit anxious to be alive at this point in time. Maybe Andinster is a little bit more anxious than others, but he's still a good staple for SoaR. This is why, despite the whole Lannister theme that everybody pins him as, he is the jungler for SoaR.
Well, the game plan has been given away from SoaR here with the Erlang, Shen, Kuang, and Vamana. I'm pretty sure we've seen the Erlang support again.
I think so. It's just going to be rotating into the mid lane as much as possible. I really like this strategy that Eager, I don't know if they developed it, but they used it first, at least in Group B. And it makes it really hard for mid players. And if this Vulcan is going to be locked in, it's going to be the same thing, where Vulcan really doesn't have the options to space himself away from the Erlang Shin if he overextends a little bit.
Well, he changed that up, and he's going to be the Chang'e. We mentioned it totally that it isn't his god pull. This is the sort of style Kiki goes for. He's not one of these big powerhouses in mid lane. He's a supportive mid laner, and it's not something we have too much in the meta from these players.
Kiki gives up the laning phase by going Chang'e here, but in teamfights, he's going to be more of a factor. As long as he builds tanky, he doesn't die in the early game, has to avoid the 3v3 skirmishes, and rely more on Skeeledon to find the setup before he really goes off. And this late game team comp coming out of EnVy between Amaterasu and the Freya, if they can survive the early game, I really like EnVyUs' comp here.
And Chang'e here obviously has a heal that can heal you back up to make sure you're not in threshold range for the Kuang, but also anti-heals 3 of these gods as well. Dennis, thoughts on the compositions? Who's your money on?
I think I got to give it to SoaR. I do like what EnVy's doing, but I don't think it's going to be as easy for Kiki to get away with the Chang'e as he wants.
Totally.
I like EnVyUs' comp, but I think SoaR's skill will actually soar them to victory here.
Well, let's finally kick off Group D. Group of Death is here. EnVy versus SoaR F. and Aggro. Take it away.
Thanks a lot, guys. Here with the EnVy composition, I actually really like the Chang'e. We've seen it a couple of times in the mid lane, and it just hasn't worked out. But I think if anybody can do it, it's going to be Kiki.
This is the first time in a long time that I've said I really like the Chang'e mid pick here. And you're right. Not only is it really comfortable for Kiki, the 2 is going to be able to immune the Erlang pull, so the snipe combo is not going to be as easy. Plus, if Kiki builds Divine Ruin, he's going to be doing 90% healing reduction if he hits the enemies with his 3, stacking on top of that anti-heal that's already built into Chang'e's kit. So I like the pick overall here, but just watching this draft, where's the Odin? It shuts down Erlang so hard. It shuts down Ra. It shuts down Vamana. I was just waiting for it to be locked in, and it just never was.
I agree. I don't know where the Odin is. And also for EnVy, my biggest concern, Aggro, is how will they survive the early game? They have all these characters that are late game. Skeeledon on the Ratatoskr can do work, but right away, PolarBearMike in trouble.
Almost got first blooded there, but Jigz misses the pin, luckily for PolarBearMike. You're right, he was in a lot of trouble there. SoaR doesn't want to let him back for free right now with poking him out, but you're right, the early game for EnVy is going to struggle a little bit, but I like the 2 picks that they used to kind of augment that weak early game, and that's Ratatoskr in the jungle and Ymir in the support role. That Ymir clear is going to help out Oceans on that Freya significantly, as well as the Ymir pick as a whole I really, really like. There's no one on SoaR that can really deal with that wall effectively outside of Metyankey and Andinster. So those are the only 2 guys who can really get around that wall. It's going to really shut down Snoopy, Baskin, and Jigz if EnVy can pick the right fights in the jungle, which they should be picking, because that really helps out Oceans. It helps out Skeeledon as well. And you also want to be fighting in the jungle with Chang'e. Those tight corridors, it's a lot harder to kite her.
So here's one of my things is, you mentioned the name Andinster before, and people have concerns about him playing on land, this, that, or a third, but the Kuang is an extremely dominant pick. How do you think it's going to fare here?
I'm not worried about Andinster on land whatsoever. Like the analyst mentioned, the Landinster thing kind of lost some weight for me after he wins Season 1 Worlds and continues to perform fairly well during Season 2 and Season 2 Worlds and all that kind of stuff. So if I'm SoaR, there's no hesitation in my mind when picking a carry god like this. this for Andy on LAN.
Exactly. I find it interesting that that's how he's going to start the LAN. Usually we see players ease into these LANs and sort of pick easy characters. You see a lot of Nemesis, right? But no, going directly for the hard carry, hard to play character out Kuang. I got to say, I like it.
I like it too. And Skeeledon with that first pick, Ratatoskr also wants to just get this LAN rolling right away. Skeeledon, one of the only 2 rookies here, this group rather, and Oceans, his teammate, is the other one. The only 2 players who have not played on LAN before. Skeeledon was at LANs as a coach for Cognitive, I believe, but this is his first time playing here at a LAN.
Yeah, and you know, I'll consider Skeeledon a rookie, but for all intents and purposes, he's been around the block. He's played on a number of teams. He's understood what it is to be a pro player. Look at this. Ooh, not going to take the bait, and we take the long way home, and that's going to make them safe one more time.
That's the right call there. You do not want to fight early as Chang'e. We mentioned how she's going to give up the laning phase basically in mid, and that's because you have to be so close to the wave to clear it. It's very dangerous to do so in the mid lane. You don't know if the support's going to be rotating over, the jungler's going to be there most of the time. It's not like solo where you can kind of afford to go in there and clear the wave effectively with that one.
Yeah, speaking of solo, we saw Zeros take her into the solo lane. We saw a couple of mid laners as we covered before. What do you think the major issues have been with Chang'e that we've seen so far?
Chang'e needs farm, and a lot of it to be effective. She's really more of a battle mage almost. You need to be in the front lines, taking damage, dealing out damage, immuning damage, everything that you can do using that extra movement speed from your passive on your abilities. So you have to get that farm in order to be enough to do enough damage to be relevant, as well as be tanky enough to be okay.
CycloneSpin gonna go down here. Baskin with the basic attacks and the Umbrella Rang, bringing down the solo laner very quickly, 2 minutes in.
That's Baskin, as advertised, right?
Yep.
The strongest solo laner in the world, potentially, showing his weight already with that first blood. And a lot of talk, you know, Cyclone was the carry of Season 2 out of the solo lane. We heard the analyst desk talk a lot about his respect for Baskin, and deservedly so. He picks up the first blood. Surprisingly enough, Tom, oh, hold that thought. Baskin gonna get ganked here. Double ultimate, gonna pop into the big baby, but it's not gonna be enough. CycloneSpin answers.
Gets the revenge kill right there off of the ultimate from the mid lane. Chang'e already making an impact.
Snipe off the mark there from Snoopy. Anhur still going aggressive. Not gonna be able to get the execute off as Skeeledon does still have purification available. Heal gonna keep them topped off for now, but Kiki using those 5 soulstone stacks effectively. You're getting 60 extra magical power every time you hit that. Metyankey's going aggressive here in the duo lane, pops the beads, goes on to PolarBearMike, stuns him into the wall. He's getting away though.
And there's the jump on top to find the up and down, but unfortunately, I think the Impale out of Metyankey might have saved the life of PolarBearMike.
Jigz still trying to find Oceans, is not going to have that pin available. You're right, that Impale pushed him a little bit too far away. Met just not quite enough damage. The meditation also coming up huge there from PBM. I love the decision to pop the ultimate early, just try and throw off the timing of the enemy team trying to hit you with their abilities.
Ymir, incredibly immobile and notorious for it, but gets a little boost from Anhur over there. That's going to be a big play. We'll see how it works out in the left lane because of it. No invades coming out just yet.
So I'm interested to see what build path Kiki's going to go for here. We were talking about how he really needs farm on this Chang'e and what kind of build is he going to go for. I assume a Divine Ruin is going to be in there, like I mentioned right at the beginning. If you hit them with the 3 with Divine Ruin, it's going to be 90% healing reduction. Jigz walled off, but Envy just looking to secure those mid camps. And you can see already the sort of impact that Ymir is going to have in the jungle here. I like the decision from Jigz to go into these reinforced Greaves, get that CCR reduction, not going to be frozen for as long, as well as tanky enough to kind of take the damage from the members of Envy.
Yeah, Ymir's really one of the characters that you absolutely want to build the tank boots against. He's Mr. CC, right? And those walls though, those are gonna cause a problem, I think, for SoaR as the game goes on.
I wonder if PolarBearMike's gonna choose to level that wall earlier on. We saw Raffer do it at the end of Season 2 up against Zhonghui, really prioritizing that wall, because he knows that it's going to be a big factor in the jungle team fights. PolarBearMike electing to level up the ice carpet right now.
Skeeledon going into the sky, looking for someone. I think he thought that SoaR was a little bit more invested on that left side.
It's Skeely just using it as a sentry sort of situation, hopping up into the sky, seeing what's going on. Snoopy saw him, called it out to Jigz, who was able to turtle form away. So now this is going to be a couple extra, about 75 seconds, where Envy's not going to be looking to force the issue around the map, probably.
So Skeeledon on this Ratatoskr. Ratatoskr is usually looked at to really just run rampant, dictate the pace of the game, go faster than the opposition. And especially with now Kuang across the way, is Skeeledon dropping the ball by not being a big enough impact right now?
He just got his Acorn fully upgraded. He's starting to go into that hi-rez Lament. I'm not upset with how passive he's being just because of his mid lane combination. With this Chang'e, it's so difficult to be aggressive early that he kind of is just there just in case they start to go heavy on Kiki, and he can use that early game prowess to their advantage to defend the mid laner. So I'm okay with how he's playing right now, but if we're sitting here for another 10 minutes and we're still not seeing Skeeledon kind of push the pace of the game, then EnVy's probably missing out on an opportunity.
We get a little bit of insight into the Chang'e build, likely going to go into the Warlock sesh this early on. I think that bodes really well for Kiki, especially with what you were talking about. One, you've got Skeeledon playing rather passive, so that's going to allow for a longer laning phase. And two, that battle mage, the melee mage that you were talking about, the extra health will really help her out.
It's going to be really big for Kiki to get that online as soon as possible. Chang'e's got a little bit of an easier time doing so because these really expensive stacking items, she doesn't have to back to get them in case, you know, you back with just a little bit too little gold and then you're like, oh, now I got to clear one wave and then go in. Immuning the pin there, that's exactly the sort of thing that you want to do with Chang'e. We mentioned it earlier, that Erlang raw combination not going to be quite as scary with that immune on Chang'e's side. But yeah, so I like the Warlocks because you don't have to worry about backing at the right times, which is a big component of getting Warlocks online at the right time. It's timing your backs, making sure you're picking up enough wards still, being healthy enough, and still trying to farm up that gold. Chang'e doesn't have to worry about that as much.
Chang'e might have to worry about this tussle on the left side. Ymir gets pinned, puts up a wall to separate the team, but PolarBearMike takes a big chunk, and there's Andinster taking him to the sky for kill number 2.
Meditation just not enough. Andinster gobbles him up, and now SoaR's gonna be looking at the Gold Fury. Andinster lands down right away. Chang'e ultimate's already been used. It's gonna be tough for them to get in. Skilly's going for it.
And there's SoaR Gaming getting the Gold Fury. Big play coming out from the guys on the right side of the UI, and the red team, however, is low on health, and Kiki plays cleanup. First kill for EnVy.
Baskin still fairly healthy, no big baby available. The
Nice
whoop is
whoop.
good. Ocean's gonna try and put out as much damage as he can, but not quite enough. Doesn't have that Fatalis finished quite yet, so not gonna be able to keep track of that fast little baby.
Yeah, that's one of those important plays. We always talk about how Freya wants to get these 2 or 3 items online. The boots, the ring, and then the Fatalis, usually Fatalis number 2. But we never talk about the other side. It's important for the enemy team to keep in mind where the Freya is and realize, hey, she's got boots and Fatalis 1. This is an opportunity to fight. They take the Gold Fury, and if Oceans really wants to fight, we'll deal with it.
Especially with Anhur being your hunter.
Yep.
That early mid game pressure that he brings is so strong around the Gold Fury. Skeeledon did a great job. He got in there and almost stole that away. Very, very close on the side of EnVy, and they do pick up a return kill, and the whole team of SoaR was very, very low, so they have to be wary of that going forward. Once Chang'e gets this Warlock Sash and probably gets some more anti-heal online, even if she doesn't go for the Divine Ruin, you're still getting 50% healing reduction on that 3 whenever it's max level. So once that healing reduction comes online, these team fights are going to have to be a little bit clean for SoaR. They're not going to be able to back up and heal quite as easily as normal with the Chang'e on the other side.
Speaking of keeping things clean, I mean, that Gold Fury should not have been as close as it was. I mean, Skeeledon is pretty much the only tool that EnVy has to really contest those Gold Furies. Ultimate and a Cyclone, but I think he caught wind of Andy heading to the right-hand side, so plays it safe.
That dazzling offensive just on such a low cooldown that Cyclone not worried about that whatsoever. The idea there is that Baskin still didn't have Big Baby available, and you might be able to burst him down with the help of Skeeledon, but like you mentioned, the rotation from Andinster was perfectly timed. The counter gank would have been perfect, and so they back up.
SoaR have been playing in EnVy's jungle the entire time. They haven't really found anything from it. They haven't found an invitation to go ahead and invade or anything, but this grouping of 3 or 4 players on the right side, this has been the go-to. Skeeledon gets bit.
Snoopy just trying to steal away the speed buff. The damage was just kind of an extra bonus. Unfortunately for SoaR, he doesn't get the speed buff, but he still does get the damage. But with the heals from Kiki and the Bumba's passive, and of course healing off of your own abilities as you do with Ratatoskr, Skilly's not too worried about that. He's just happy he got the speed.
Ooh, but EnVy want to fight. Coming around the corner on the right side. There's Skeeledon coming from the top. Knock up, there it is. And the damage coming out from the Ymir is big. Snoopy on his last legs. Sits in the heal. No range damage, and Andy takes out Skeely on the backside.
How is Snoopy still alive? Now Cyclone going in on Andinster, but is able to get away without using that purification. Wow, Snoopy was so low, but like you mentioned, no long range damage coming out of EnVy, can't secure it.
I talk about it all the time. More off screen. I haven't been able to like have a platform for this, but I talk about really balancing the equation that is your team fight or that is your team composition. And I love the Chang'e pick, but what you're losing by choosing Chang'e instead of a traditional mage is that long-range AoE damage, maybe even single-target damage. A Ra, a Vulcan, virtually any other character gets that kill on Snoopy. But because Chang'e is the selection for Envy, the kill is dropped.
But that's a trade-off, because in the later game, you're going to be able to be more up front than most mages. You're going to be able to make an impact on the frontliners a little bit more than most mages. You kite better than most mages. There's a lot that Chang'e does have going for her in the middle lane, but you're right. At this stage in the game, definitely a weakness, just not quite enough damage to finish off Snoopy. But Kiki's done a really great job farming thus far. 1-0 and 1, sitting right around even with Snoopy, which is a great spot to be in as Chang'e at this stage in the game. Probably fairly close to completing that Warlock Sash. Can we take a look at Golden Hand? He only needs a little bit more gold. He's actually got enough right now to finish that Warlock Sash. His bunny may be running back from base as we speak with that completed item. So he's going to start to get those stacks online. And anytime you can get it before 12 minutes. 12 minutes is like the number for mid laners in Warlock Sash. That's the target right there, and Kiki's going to hit it early.
Well, looking across the way at the Ra, he's got the common sash as well. If he chooses to go Warlock Sash, it'll be a while. There's the beam. Skeeledon getting hurt, and he goes under the tower. Not enough to find the kill, but sets up Snoopy beautifully.
Beautifully there.
Beautifully.
I got you. Beautifully is what the word you were looking for. Skeely, just no purification available. And there we see the other end of the Kuang ultimate. Yep. It's not always the gobble gobble, I'm a huge dragon now. It can also be used as setup, and there Andy and Snoopy use it to perfection. Skeely now eats his second death of the game, sitting down 600 gold to Kuang at the 12-minute mark. We talked about it earlier. Is Skeeledon pushing the tempo enough to warrant this first pick, Ratatoskr? And being 600 gold down at 12 minutes up against Kuang, not why you picked that god.
And nodding to why you picked that god, going back to the balance of the composition, there's all late game on Envy. Skeeledon is pretty much the only early or mid presence next to this Ymir. So if Skeeledon's able to be kept down by SoaR, they're doing exactly what they need to do.
Sitting up 2 kills right now, 4-2, about 2,000 gold almost. And now they're going to be looking at the second Gold Fury of the game. PolarBearMike knows the timer. He doesn't want to give this up for free by any stretch. It's going to be Envy just trying to get this ward coverage. It's so important to make sure that you aren't going to get a Gold Fury snuck away. Jigz gets frozen and walled off, forced to use the ultimate, and that's a good win.
I love the play coming out from Metyankey, dropping the pillar to stop the onslaught of Freya. That was perfect.
Great Sanctuary there from Kiki. Also perfect. Uses the immune, then the Sanctuary. Immunes out the snipe and the Desert Sphere. And Kiki going for a shell second relic, but they're not worried about the second relic right now. They're looking at gold.
And it's halfway dead already. Metyankey making the flank, gets silenced out by the solo laner, jumps over the top, but the damage is going to be confirmed this time. It's the Freya following suit, but he's blocked. Skeely finds the kill on a Jigz, and Oceans finally takes out Metyankey. CycloneSpin on the backside, gets ulted by Andy. Double kill for the jungler, and Baskin's rotation is hot.
Double whoop is perfect there from Ocean. Sanctuary just trying to keep himself alive for now, but it's going to be Ocean's going to be the next to fall. Andinster gets another kill. The double finishes it off for the Kuang. A deicide on the side of SoaR, and the Gold Fury still ripe for the taking.
I let out a verbal uh-oh when Kuang was selected. You know, there was a thought in my mind like, all right, maybe this player, maybe Andinster. I don't believe in the whole Andinster. I think he's over that. But just game one could be tough. Absolutely not. 6-0-2 right now. You give the hard carry jungler the hard carry character, and Andy's doing work.
I was the one who was interviewing Andinster yesterday during our media day here at these group lands, and it was really interesting to talk to him. He was very candid in a lot of his responses, and one of the things I asked him straight up, I said, "Do you think you're still the best jungler in the world?" And he said, "Sometimes."
Sure.
The consistency is something that he still wants to work on, and he's very forthcoming with his. Yes, he still gets nervous sometimes during games, but he's getting better at trying to give that away. And just right here, he looks like the best jungler in the world right now, 6-0-2.
Exactly, and you want to talk about consistency. Andy's worried about consistency, but jumps into the land playing Kuang. I don't know there. Maybe he might have been playing coy.
A little bit. I mean, you want to show a little bit of humble. You want to show that you're not some arrogant guy and you've got some humbleness. But to me, what the things that he was saying seemed very, very true to him and what he thought about himself. and I had a lot of fun talking to him about it. His thoughts on adapting, and homie Faye's got a lot of respect for in the jungle. An awesome conversation that I'm sure you guys will be seeing more of as the weekend goes on.
Yeah, Andy's a great guy, really introspective, thinks about the game a lot, which bodes well, which works out well for the guys on SoaR. I know that Jigz is another guy that really grinds hard deep down.
So does PolarBearMike on the side of Envy. A lot of respectful talk about him and the way he thinks about the game and that sort of stuff. For me, the story for Envy is how well are Kiki and Skeeledon going to continue to work together? Can CycloneSpin continue to start to show that he was the player in Season 2,
sure,
that he looked like he was? How well are they going to kind of synergize there? Right now, looking like it's in SoaR's favor for now. We'll see if it keeps going that way.
Yeah, exactly. They're up 4,000, which is a pretty chunk of change for now. But like we said, Envy's composition is all dictated towards later on.
Right now, sitting at 19 stacks on that Warlock Sash for Kiki. Starting to get it going. Rod of Asclepi is completed for Snoopy, so that's going to up the heals from both him and Jigz.
Wraparound coming out from Jigz, finds a knock-up on the support. Ymir's isolated, big meditation, but a bigger smack in the face coming out from Baskin. 3 players on Envy behind their tier 1 tower. Chang'e just can't deal with the damage out of the solo lane, and Skeeledon's going to force Baskin out of here.
Cyclone just trying to do anything on this front line, but it's him against all of SoaR right now. Gets pinned, gets knocked up, doing as much damage as he can, but here comes Andy from the back. Blinking in, Water Illusion's good just to reposition. Gobbles up the solo laner, and Met's going in on Oceans.
Oh, the knock-up is enough to confirm the kill. Snoopy with the last hit onto Oceans underneath the tower. Tier 1 tower goes down, 16 minutes, and SoaR looking for Tier 2.
The anti-heal from Kiki is just not enough right now. The heals from Snoopy doing so much work on the side of SoaR, now sitting up 7,000 gold at the 16-minute mark. We were just talking about 12 minutes and it being a 2K lead, basically. All of a sudden, SoaR get a deicide, get the Gold Fury. The next fight, they get both towers in middle. SoaR is just snowballing this game right now.
Cyclone came in on the side with a brilliant 3-man stun in the Raheel.
In the Raheel. That's the problem. And Cyclone has no healing reduction. He doesn't have the Pestilence, goes for the Genji's Guard instead, goes for Sunder instead of Weakening Curse. The only one with any anti-heal on the side of Envy right now is Chang'e, and he hasn't even built it. It's just there in his kit.
Skilly's in trouble, forces the ult. He'll get away, but now SoaR are grouped up on the right side, looking for more devastation. CycloneSpin going the Sunder. Is that a mistake?
No. Well, it's not a mistake as long as PolarBearMike was going to be able to get weakening, but he's not going to be able to with how tough his early game has been, sitting at 0-3-1. Really needs a sprint to keep up with the sprint on the side of SoaR. I really would have preferred the weakening there. I agree. Only one sprint on the side of SoaR, so if you can bait that out at the beginning of the team fight, or you know it's down from a previous one, that weakening just does so much for your team fight. And again, I mean, the argument from these pro players when talking to them about how you play up against these raw compositions, because the anti-heal isn't always effective, and I understand their argument, I agree with it, because Pestilence is great in the team fight, but the whole idea is that whenever you've got a Pestilence up against you as raw, your whole team just backs up, disengages away from that aura, drops the heal then and re-heals, and it's not really that big of a deal. But you can't just say, oh, well, you know, they'll just back up. It's not worth building anti-heal, because then you don't even have to back up. You could stay in the front line and deal the damage anyways with the heal. So, I mean, you see right now, 6,000 healing on the side of Raw. Kiki doing a good job, 3.5k as well, but just not going to be able to compete with that strong Solar Blessing.
And I mean, that was Snoopy's game plan from the get-go, right? The second or third item Rod of Asclepius, he knew that he was going to go healing, and I really want to commend SoaR right here for just playing absolutely lights out. They identified the 2 players on Envy that would give them a problem in the early game, Skeeledon and PolarBearMike, both of which have 3 deaths right now. Envy looking to turn it around. Beautiful freeze out of the support for Envy, and here's the follow-up damage. Oceans from the sky takes out Snoopy.
Now here comes the crash down from Skilly, but a great taunt from Jigz into the Desert's Fury. Kiki's already dead. PolarBearMike's going to be the next one. Baskin picks him up. The rest of SoaR is here. Baskin gets the double. Metyankey still going in. Everyone just running away from this baby.
And the problem there, honestly, CycloneSpin just came in too late. Baskin was in the middle of the fight. It was a 5-on-4. Cyclone comes in the flank when 2 of his teammates are already down.
The other problem is also that Snoopy lived just a little bit too long. If Snoopy gets deleted right off the bat, the rest of EnVy could just back up, take the pick, and get ready for the next team fight. Instead, Snoopy lives long enough to buy time for his team to get there and clean up for him. 4 dead on the side of EnVy, another Gold Fury, the 3rd of the game. We're at 20 minutes, and we are almost at that dreaded 10K gold lead.
Yeah, this is a very fast game. 5-16 right now. SoaR in the lead, and like you said, just a hair underneath that 10,000 gold. It was funny, Hinduman predicted long games, but this one, I don't know.
I think Hinduman was just doing Hinduman things and trying to get short games going. You know, the reverse caster cursed was hoping for some short games, but I'm just hoping for some good games, and we're seeing for one right now out of SoaR. I mean, the teamwork that they've shown. Jigz has played this Erlang Shen very, very well. Not quite to Aurora level, I would say. You know, the Aurora would be upset with me if I said he was as good as him with his signature god right now, but Jigz looking very, very comfortable on this warrior support. As advertised, basically. A lot of talk about Jigz coming into this week about, you know, is he the best support in the world? Is he the most mechanically skilled support in the world? And a lot of talking to all the players, they all talk about his huge god pool. The mechanics are great. His relic usage is perfect, and showing it off so far today.
Skeeledon split pushing on the left side will get a tier 1. But SoaR's going to open the door and start the Fire Giant. They know it's going to be a 4-on-5 if EnVy choose to fight. And it looks like EnVy's going to walk away and just let him have it.
PolarBearMike making the call to give that up. Let Skeeledon get this tier 2 tower on the left-hand side, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to.
So.
I mean, he doesn't have any full penetration items completed. He's got the Warrior's Bane. Just going to try and get this down, but Baskin's going to be able to stop him, so only a tier 1 tower for that Fire Giant. EnVy's in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, I don't know. That one was really rough. EnVy going to group up in the mid lane. They're likely going to farm and head back to base before they really push. Like we said, they took out the entirety of the mid lane, and now they have the Fire Giant, so they can push pretty much wherever they feel fit.
They're probably going to push down this left-hand side. You want to take the towers and the Phoenixes on the opposite side of the Fire Giant, make it difficult for the opposition to defend their Titan and the next Fire Giant spawn at the same time. So you want to make sure that you're pushing down that opposite side when you have the option. And EnVy has the option to do whatever they want right now, setting up 10K gold at 22 minutes. They're controlling this game.
And right now, it's SoaR, you mean, and EnVy right now, you know, when it comes down to it, we were talking about the late game, that this team is sort of comprised of characters that will succeed in the late game. Well, when does EnVy get there?
Their Titan's probably going to fall before they get there at this rate. Kiki getting that 3rd item online, now starting to go for what looks like is going to be his own Rod of Asclepius, but still no Divine Ruin, still not going to be able to go to 90% anti-healing. And I understand the decision, because if Kiki's close enough to be hitting whole teams with his 3, he's going to die. And that healing reduction doesn't really matter, and that's the problem with Chang'e. It looks great on paper. Yes, we can just do 90% anti-healing, but can you actually do it without really dying instantly? Kiki deciding probably not, wants to go for more sustain, sitting at 61 stacks on this Warlock Sash. So he's getting there in terms of tankiness, sitting at just over 2,000 health.
What's he doing here?
At the end of the day, I mean, he's going to get sniped for 1,200 almost, about 1,000 right now from Snoopy. So all that tankiness isn't really going to matter with the Fire Giant on the side of SoaR.
SoaR's going to go ahead and back as a team.
Lots of gold. Lots and lots and lots of gold. You're sitting on 2 tier 1 towers, 2 tier 2 towers, plus all the minion waves you picked up in the meantime. Might as well back, spend the gold. You've still got over a minute and a half on this Fire Giant push if you want to go for the next Phoenix. Just try and pick one up before you look towards the Fire Giant again.
EnVy's going to group up in the mid lane, and SoaR see them. If EnVy get too aggressive, SoaR's certainly just going to take the fight. And at this point, single team fight from SoaR could win the game.
Just unfortunate for EnVy, because they've been doing what you should be doing at this stage, and that's split pushing away. But whenever you split push, it pushes your minion waves up so far that then you've got nothing to farm. That's why you saw every member of EnVy pushing up that far, because there was no farm to split up. That was the only farm available to them on the map.
And they need it. The junglers have 4 levels between them, 3 levels in between the hunters, another 3 for the supports as well. The only players even closer to solo and mid, and even they're trailing in experience. So EnVy certainly have to pick it up. EnVy watched as SoaR took basically all of the towers. SoaR's going to siege here in the mid lane.
Jigz just looking for that long-range pin, wanting to set up Snoopy. Doesn't find it onto Kiki. They're sieging the tower. Great taunt, though, from Jigz. Perfect snipe as well from Snoopy.
And there's a continued force coming out of SoaR. Bang goes Andinster, taking out PolarBearMike in the ultimate. And Baskin's going to chase everybody into the throne room, allowing Envy to take the mid Phoenix and the left.
Still 30 seconds on this Fire Giant. Skilly wants to come crashing down, but the jump from Metyankey is perfectly timed, just focusing down that Phoenix. Andinster doesn't care about your objectives, he just wants the kills.
CycloneSpin trying to take care of Metyankey, but Metyankey just takes care of him. Oceans finds the banish, but it's a little bit too late. 2 Phoenixes down. SoaR don't have the patience. They're going for it all.
Kiki is going to fall here. The 3rd death for the mid laner on Envy, and you're right. SoaR's going for the end. They don't care about this 3rd Phoenix whatsoever. 25 minutes, extremely clean from SoaR Gaming, the first victory here in Group D.
They just completely understood the game plan for Envy. They said, all right, it's late game characters. There are 2 characters that can give us trouble, and right away, they went directly for those 2.
Again, we love the Ymir pick. It worked really well if Envy's able to kind of extend the game into the mid game and then pick the fights in the jungle, but SoaR never let it get to the mid game. No. They just continually picked on the immobile Ymir. Skeeledon wasn't able to make the impact that he wanted with that first pick, Ratatoskr, and it was, like you mentioned, perfect job by SoaR, identifying the 2 gods in the early game that are going to be effective and making it so the later game gods will never be effective, just winning before they can.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, a lot of times we see teams win. More often than not, we actually see the progressive approach, where you win based off of your own composition and you execute it correctly. Here, Envy wins, or rather, SoaR wins the game by just dismantling what Envy had planned.
When you get really fed on Kuang early, the whole game really opens up for you. You can do whatever you want basically anywhere, and just so much setup for Ra, so much damage coming out of Kuang. Couldn't really dive the back line from a long distance with the Chang'e middle. You're not going to be able to go over the top and kill the Ra from a distance. So just SoaR knew what they wanted to do coming in, and they did it perfectly.
Game 1, quick stuff. How do you feel, analysts?
Very quick stuff, but that was pretty much the Andinster show, and not the Andinster we're used to talking about. He just went off that game.
Absolutely. We saw that the late game composition coming out of Envy, which is not enough to really deal with the aggression coming out of SoaR right away. We saw the first blood coming out in the solo lane, just immediate aggression.
Yeah, no, Baskin definitely showed up, obviously, getting that solo kill onto CycloneSpin, I think cementing his place as the dominant solo laner so far. But for me, I think this whole game was kind of shown at that right side mid-harpies. I think, a couple minutes in, 8 minutes in, when we saw Snoopy get walled off, we saw PolarBearMike, it was a 3-man gank, and Snoopy not only lives, but he's just running away, and just there's no chase potential from Envy. And then again, it happened at that first Gold Fury, where what happened was 3 ults were burned on Kiki, Jigz burned his ult, just getting caught out of position. And then great call from Envy going for the Gold Fury. I think it was Anhur, Metyankey getting low in the back. And then Oceans has to chase him with his ult, completely separated from his team. And then his team's losing. He was a big source of their damage. Just like the fact that Envy couldn't get these kills, and against the sustain comp where you had to keep resetting, like, it just doesn't work out.
That was definitely the turning point. That deicide around the Gold Fury where they found those 5 kills. I think they only lost 1 in the process where, like you mentioned, they overcommitted onto Metyankey. We saw Oceans fall behind a lot in levels after that point in time, and then SoaR just ran away with it from there.
Composition-wise as well, I mean, we saw that they'd taken a little bit of a page out of Eager's book there because they did pick up the Erlang Shen Ra, but then they added to it with the Kuang as well. That Kuang that we saw, you saw the setup for Snoopy in that replay there as well. It's just an additional factor that then comes into play, and it shows how good Andy was at illustrating things in this jungle.
And there were so many opportunities for Snoopy to get off his ultimate in that clip that we saw earlier on, from the knock-up from Jigz, the taunt, but he was waiting for the setup from Andinster in the ultimate, so just really great patience coming out of Snoopy. More importantly, we're not used to seeing him play these traditional mage characters, so I'm really impressed to see him go from a different style, not playing the hunters anymore.
We mentioned